What's going on, Tamers? It's me, a Japanese Digimon TCG player who somehow has a full English playset of all the BT9 and BT10 cards. If you don't believe me, here's every alt art for the sets. I'm not even kidding. So here's the thing. I'm super down to just give all of these away in some form or fashion. I just don't know how I should go about doing that. So guys, do me a favor in the comments below. If you have an idea of how I should be giving these cards away, I'd love to hear them, and I'll take the good ideas, and maybe I'll reward the people who have good ideas as well with something special. But yeah, I somehow happened on a ton of English cards, and I am kind of down to just give them away because I can't use them here in the Japanese meta. Speaking of meta, we've just wrapped up the third week of events for the BT11 Dimensional Phase set over here in Japan as well as the rest of Asia, and after taking a look at the results, last week I was really scared about Grandis. I was crying because it looked like it was going to take over the meta and XAntibody was going to come back to fruition. However, I am pleasantly surprised with the results that I saw. Things have definitely shaken up in a way that I could not have imagined, and I cannot wait to get into them. So without further ado, let's take a look. So as we actually hop into the tournament results, there's a lot to talk about this week. The first thing, it's no surprise to anybody if you've watched any of the videos before the week 1 and the week 2 videos, that Black War Greymon X is the deck to beat. We've talked about this ongoing war within the Black War Greymon X players of, do I run a red base package or a black base package? And we've seen that shift week by week. I think we finally started to see the deck find a solidified build, and the red base package is winning out. I think the numbers this week were 11 people running the red base package who won events over the black base package, which was only about 6. So definitely starting to see folks shift toward the stronger red base package, considering the things that they're coming up against in the meta. Last week I talked at length about why Grandis was coming back in such a big way, and we've also started to see other decks from the BT9 XAntibody set emerge as well. We see Red War Greymon, just pure Red War Greymon, start to do really well as far as certain results for the week, and this is wholly due to the fact that these XAntibody decks are faster than Black War Greymon X, and so they can either out-damage it and just win before it can get to its win condition, or they can actually destroy and revenge kill Black War Greymon XAntibody in the case of Grandis. And with the reintroduction of these XAntibody decks into the meta, decks that released after that are starting to see more play as well as a counter to even those decks. So we see, of course, Crossheart here still doing very well, Blue Flare doing fantastic this week, the number 2 overall in wins. We're also starting to see things like Machine Dramon as well as Security Control and Ragnamon, which is another form of a control deck, start to get experimented with and played more often to better results. And so what we're starting to see here is a shift from a more aggressive meta to a more control one, whereas games are going to go a little bit longer, a little bit more destruction effects, a couple more options in the decks, just to really make sure that you don't get steamrolled by a deck like Grandis or War Greymon XAntibody. Another thing that we're starting to see happen are those decks that we had predicted to do really well before the set was released are starting to finally reap those tournament results that we had expected. The first one here being Mastamon. Mastamon doing fantastic this week. We've also started to see X7 eclipse X5 as far as wins are concerned. And we also, thank God, oh my goodness, Ulforces Digimon is finally starting to see tournament results, and as a person who had to pull out their most powerful card, their credit card, to get those 4 copies of the Secret Rare Arena Tamer, I'm so happy to see this. I tried out Ulforces this week. I actually took them to some of my locals, and the deck, I ran a hybrid / Ulforces Digimon package, and unfortunately kind of fell flat on his face. Some of the draws felt really clunky, some of the opening hands weren't that great, and so, I really went back to the drawing board. After taking a look at some of the tournament results this week, it feels like they're all going for a wholly Digimon focused line, or a Digimon / Galgamon line, which is really interesting. And when we have a chance to take a look at some of the decks at top for the week, we're definitely going to dive in there. One thing I will say, however, is that the support for the decks kind of feels all over the place. The Tamers aren't really agreed upon yet, and the option cards are also just scattered to the winds. There's everything from Hammer Spark to Blue Memory Boost to a Delicate Plan, also the blue plugin, which gives you Digimon jamming and the fact that it can't be blocked. A solid support plan is still kind of in the works for this deck, and so as tournament results roll in over the next couple weeks, I'll keep my eye on the deck and see what comes of it. And then to round out the champion level decks for the week, we see Grandis again. I talked at length about why this deck is starting to show up and how it kind of fits this very particular niche that a lot of decks in the meta can't fit. And so if you want to know why this deck is being run right now, definitely take a look at last week's video. A lot to explain there. And as we take a look at the rookie level decks for the week, Galacticmon still taking wins. It's good to see. I think that this deck actually does particularly well against some of the XAntibody decks, being able to keep itself around and then just really grind them down. Additionally, the deck has seen some updates as far as the build is concerned. Some players have started to experiment with a more purple blackish version of the deck, where they run option cards like Metal Storm as well as the Immortal Undead Ruler to mill cards into the trash and get to their Galacticmon much more quickly. So it's interesting to see how this deck evolves. Again, I'll keep my eye on if it has any big resurgences, but for now, just know that players are still running and wrapping Galacticmon in the meta. The most interesting deck in the rookie tier, however, is definitely Mervamon this week. Mervamon kind of has two different builds. The first is more of an X5 build, where they take a lot of the Crossheart cards, they slap in Ignitmon and Mervamon on the top end, and then you just have a way to, you know, reuse your previously destroyed Digimon with save. So the second build actually utilizes the old Minervamon as well as Darklizamon, one of the new cards released for BT11, which has Retaliation, and then it also has like draw one, drop one on delete. So the build for this deck is really cool. You build up into your Minervamon, and then when Minervamon is deleted, you can either play a level 5, which will allow you to go into the Cerberus loop using the Cerberus package, or you can go into Mervamon, which allows you to play 2 Crossheart or Retaliation Digimon. And because you have Ignitemon in the deck as well as Darklizamon, you can use either of those, and the Retaliation and Crossheart Digimon gain blocker and rush for the turn. So the free Minervamon Destruction plays Mervamon, and then Mervamon 0 cost. You can Digicross that, and then you can play 2 Digimon and get 2 swings immediately. Or you go into the Cerberus package and get a ton of memory. So the deck seems really flexible for a purple deck, and I hope that people continue to push this deck further, because just in my playtests alone, it's been really, really fun. And finally, to round out the week, we've seen just a few decks, nothing too crazy here. Jesmon top, we saw Dark Knight X top as well, Marsmon, Phoenixmon topped, and then strangely enough, and I don't know how this is happening, but Aegis Dramon is topping somewhere. I tried this deck out at the end of the last set, and it just really fell flat on its face, and with the new Wado C Dramon, I don't feel like it got enough support. And even after trying it for like 2 weeks, I was like, alright, I threw the towel in. I can't do it anymore. But someone out there somehow found success with it, so my hat's off to them. Alright, so as we take a look at some of the decks that topped over the course of the week, you know, we've seen Blue Flare do decently well over the past couple of weeks, but we haven't really shown it off. So I just want to give a quick rundown of how the deck runs since the new updates from BT11. We take a look here at the top, you see the new Dracomon being able to give you card draw as well as memory on inheritance whenever you would play Blue Flare Digimon. We also see the new Kiriha, Taiki, and Nene Tamer, which gives you card draw as well as memory at the start of every turn for basically putting a Digimon up under it as a source. And then finally we see like the king, probably the best new card for the deck, which is the Z Greymon, being able to effectively Digivolve for 0, Unrest, and then on deletion, you can basically take the male Birdramon and the Greymon up under it and put it up under a Tamer for later use, which in my opinion is kind of cracked for just a rare card, and as fast as this deck already was, this only makes it that much faster. The second deck that I want to take a look at this week is the one that I alluded to before, the Ulforces Vidramon deck that runs like this side Galgamon line. I picked this deck specifically because I had a really interesting conversation with a player at my locals this week who said, you know, Galgamon doesn't really seem that effective or that powerful at face value. However, when you have a Galgamon on the field, anytime an opponent will make a search, you basically gain 3 memory. People typically have so many cards in hand nowadays that being able to just gain 3 memory whenever they would draw a single card is pretty powerful. It typically swings the turn back over into your favor, so your opponent has to really consider if they want to make a search or not, because at that point, like, their turn is over. I definitely agree with him that I hadn't seen the deck in that light, but the fact that he does essentially give you a second turn in a lot of cases is pretty powerful. So I think this week I'm going to give this deck another shot and see what comes of it. So the last deck that I want to talk about that topped over the past week is the Mervamon deck list. So really interesting if you're a Lilithmon loop player, or you were in the past, or you enjoyed that deck, this deck is definitely going to feel right at home. In fact, it might be even more flexible than Lilithmon loop, which is fantastic. So the idea is you build up into your Minervamon, and then whenever it's destroyed, if you've got the level 5 Cerberusmon on the field, you can either go the other Cerberusmon route to gain a ton of memory and do whatever you want with that, or you can opt to go the Mervamon route. So the Mervamon route actually is a bit more aggressive. It allows you to play immediately up to 2 Digimon who have either Retaliation as an effect or have Crossheart in their traits, which means the Darklizamon as well as the Ignitemon. So the idea here is you gain both of these folks, they gain Rush and Blocker immediately, so you have at least 2 more swings, or you've got 2 bodies in front of 2 more swings from your opponent. We also see a couple copies of the Revive from Darkness just to get our level 5s out very quickly and only for a super cheap 4 cost. And then finally, you know, if you are having a hard time getting your hands on these promo Impmon cards, I took a look at them this week actually at a card shop, and they're still kind of pricey at around like 15 bucks or the equivalent, just for one card. So if you can't manage to get your hands on a couple of these cards, it's super easy to just swap these out with like 2 copies of a Digimon, 2 copies of a Psychemon, just to have some floodgates in the deck to stop your opponent from going wild. Actually, this is the deck that I'm currently like playtesting, and as someone who missed that initial like Lilithmon loop phase of their Digimon career, it's really cool, and the fact that it's even more flexible than the original Lilithmon speaks volumes about like how good I think the deck is. So hopefully I'll get to see this deck with better tournament results in the coming weeks, because this definitely feels like it deserves them. And so that's going to be the results for week 3 of the BT11 Dimensional Phase meta for the Japan and Asia region. You know, I really was scared because I thought that Grandis was going to like just overrun the meta this week, but I'm very happy to see that players have adapted so quickly and have found answers in those more control-focused decks. I also feel like it opens up the meta to more control-focused decks, things like Galacticmon, Ragnamon, Security Control as well. It's nice to see that those decks have a place to shine and that after the Jet Sylphimon restriction, they weren't just like destroyed completely. I'm always a fan of a more diverse and healthy meta, and so it's really good to see that, and I hope that more decks pop up as a result. Also, let me know your thoughts and comments about the way the meta is developing over here. Like, is Mervamon gonna make a big splash? Are we like loop gaming? Is that what's happening? Is Ulforces actually gonna claim its spot among the top tier decks, or is it just gonna fall flat on its face again? Also, don't forget, if you have some ideas about the way I should give away all these English BT9 and BT10 cards that I got my hands on somehow, do me a favor and let me know in the comments below. I will surely be looking for ideas there. And I'm gonna get out of here. Before you guys get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.